Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Rebel Roundup. It's our weekly show where we round up the news. I think that the name of the show is quite apt. We talk about the news of the week completely unscripted in a way where we get to interact with you, and I'll get to that in just a second. This used to be a daily show, but there's just so much news out in the world, and it would be a shame to take our field journalists off those stories. So we've condensed the show to just on Friday, and they have handed it off to somebody who is unfortunately stuck at her desk most of the day, and that's me, your host, Sheila Gunn-Reid. Now, I alluded to the fact that the show is interactive, and indeed it is. Oh, I hope my internet is holding up here well. But the show is interactive. If you are watching us on YouTube, okay, fine, great. There are 1.6 million sets of eyeballs who routinely watch us over there, but it is a censorship platform. They do censor the sorts of things that you can talk about over there. So if you want the uncensored version of Rebel News, and you want an opportunity to support the work that we do here at Rebel News, might I suggest that you migrate over to a couple of platforms that don't really care about your politics, which is how I want it to be. I don't care if they're liberal or conservative. I don't care. And I don't want them to care about me either. So you can watch us on Rumble. You can watch us on Odyssey. You can still watch us on YouTube. You can also watch us on Getter. But on Rumble and Odyssey, you can do two things. You can support us, but also engage in lively dialogue on the show. So if you throw some money in the Rumble rant, that's their paid chat, or the Odyssey hyper chat, and it is above the $5 minimum, that's $5 US, sorry, that's just the currency they deal in. We are obligating me to address your question, comment, whatever, on air, but don't let that be the bar for entry, because frequently we read chats that are under that minimum, and even the free chats sometimes, if you guys are clever, funny, interesting, whatever. So all that is to say, get talking, have your say, and if you want to support the work that we do here at Rebel News to help us stay independent from the tentacles of Justin Trudeau's federal government, maybe leave us a chat. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into one of, I think, the biggest story in the country, if you were paying attention, and boy, was I ever, because that was what I assigned myself to do for the week. And again, this morning, it was the Foreign Interference Commission, wherein an independent commission, I hope, run by Justice Marie Hogue, is set to examine and has been examining foreign interference in the last two Canadian elections, particularly with the People's Republic of China. Now, we have heard about other players, Russia. All testimony has said that it has been completely insignificant. They don't actually care all that much about Canada. And really, can you blame them? It's mostly been China, to a lesser extent, India, mostly China, and Pakistan. Again, just a fraction of the foreign interference that happens in Canada is from anybody other than China. And so we learned this week, actually, it was sort of in the dead of night, a document was dumped after CSIS Director David Vigneault testified, and it was related to a briefing that he had given to the Prime Minister and senior officials in the PMO, including Katie Telford. And the document said, we know that the PRC has deceptively interfered they use two words here, clandestinely and deceptively interfered in both the 2019 and 2021 general elections, and that over a dozen candidates and several staff members, close to a dozen staff members, were implicated in PRC foreign interference networks. So not just instances, this is an ongoing network of foreign interference. And that was given in a briefing to the Prime Minister's office. I believe that one in particular was February of 2023. Now, subsequent to that, Justin Trudeau has said repeatedly, we've seen no evidence of foreign interference. He was briefed, at least according to this briefing note, he was, and we'll get to that. it was a sneaky thing that the government did, dumping this document in the dead of night after the man that the document related to had done testifying. So they didn't want this information to be public. It's, I'm going to use just the most plain language here. It's sleazy that they did it this way. Why? Because how does Commission Counsel cross-examine? How do they ask anybody questions about a document they didn't have? How do they prepare? And it's extra sleazy when you look at the amount of staff and time the government has for this sort of stuff. They have entire departments dedicated to access to information. I know that's one of my key jobs here at Rebel News. They have staffers all over the place. And they've known that this commission has been going on leading up to this 4 months. They knew that David Vigneault would testify. Why didn't they turn the documents over in a reasonable amount of time? Well, it's because they didn't want you to see what was in those documents. And they didn't want anybody to be able to ask David Vigneault about those documents, because you can't ask him about stuff that's not before the commission, right? As we have found out repeatedly. But let's show this first video. I'm not sure which one this is, but we'll look at it together. This might be when the document was first made public. Lawyers objected in the morning. They said, look, we got these documents at 1 o'clock in the morning related to a witness that is already done testifying. What the heck is this? And as people watching the commission, we really didn't know what those documents said. I think this is the first time we heard about those documents.
On the first page, actually this is the only page I believe, because I think the second page is fully redacted. The assessment reads, investigations into activities linked to the Canadian federal election in 2019 reveal an active foreign interference network. Then there's a redaction. This network involved the Chinese redaction, local community leaders, Canadian politicians, and their staff. Under broad guidance from the redacted, co-opted staff of targeted politicians, provide advice on China-related issues, and community leaders facilitate the clandestine transfer of funds and recruit potential targets. Ms. Druin, have you seen this document before?
Yes, I have seen that document before. It's difficult for me to say when I've seen that document with the different roles I've played, but I have seen that document before.
Do you recall, have you seen it before giving your witness statement that I referred to earlier?
I've seen it following the leaks and the work I've done in terms of the leaks investigation.
Okay. So my question is, given that this document uses the term network and it's not just the media, does that change your opinion on the appropriateness of its use?
The comment that you quote before are still the same. The network here doesn't mean that the individuals were working in concert.
That's okay. I think that's good. I think that's literally what a network means. Like, I think that's literally what a network means. But that's the lawyer for the Human Rights Commission. She's an intervening lawyer. And that's the first time that we had seen an actual document that said that we know, the CSIS officials know, and she is putting it to, because you can't ask CSIS now, they're done testifying, but she's putting it to Justin Trudeau's chief security advisors, and we might remember some of their faces from the Public Order Emergency Commission. There's one thing in there that I think isn't getting enough attention, and that's probably my fault, because as this stuff is going by, you're trying to cut a clip because it's really interesting, but you're also trying to watch the next clip and not have your computer just melt down in front of you, because there's a lot of heavy lifting being done by your processor. But what they say there is that the staff of the targeted politicians are co-opted by the PRC. So the targeted politicians mean the like of Michael Chong, Kenny Chiu, Alice Wong, Jenny Kwan. They're targeted. And what they're saying is not just that the PRC is targeting them out of the consulate or asking Chinese state language media to not even mention them, just treat them like they don't exist. What they're saying is staff are co-opted. So they have infiltrated the campaigns of these politicians or their offices. In the case of Michael Chong, we don't even know, and are undermining them from within. It's not like they're being targeted from outside. They're saying staff have been co-opted of the targeted politicians. It's no surprise to me that staff might be co-opted by the PRC to work on, let's say, Han Dong's campaign, right? Like that makes perfect sense. They want their guy to get elected. They're going to make sure that their people are working on his campaign. But these are politicians on the other side, anti-China politicians who have their staff co-opted and infiltrated. That's really chilling. You know, like, how do you, that would make me so paranoid. I guess you would be paranoid if you were targeted by the PRC. Everybody knew and nobody told you, as is the case with Michael Chong, Kenny Chiu, and Jenny Kwan. But that was the first time we heard that document, and it was a CSIS briefing note to the PMO and the Prime Minister himself. Let's go into this next one. This is about state actors being able to conduct foreign interference successfully in Canada. And Olivia, I'm going to put you on the spot because I cut the re-testimony of CSIS. I'll give some context here. And they said, actually, Trudeau says we didn't brief him. We actually did. So what happened was, because this document was dumped, and it's like the most explosive document of the whole thing. Even though official testimony ended with Justin Trudeau on Wednesday, thankfully, the guy is a psychic vampire. No, psychic Dracula. Worse than a psychic vampire. I was very tired after listening to him lie. But the CSIS director then was recalled to testify this morning virtually, and he was put questions to him about that document that came out in the dead of night after his testimony, and that Justin Trudeau denied being briefed on certain points of it. It's kind of funny because PMO staff, including Katie Telford, have contemporaneous notes in their own handwriting written about this briefing note. But then they say the one really important thing that's right in the middle, they didn't get briefed on that. All the other stuff they got briefed on and took notes on. They just didn't get briefed on the one thing that is the smoking gun, which is just ridiculous. Is my Skype feed frozen or my Zoom feed frozen? Anyway, let's go to that first video, and then we'll go to the other one where the CSIS director denies not briefing Trudeau.
The briefing notes prepared for the director didn't particularly align with the actual briefing we got. Yes. The briefing was spent almost entirely on specific cases, and all of these notes prepared for the director, generally saying, yes, foreign interference is serious, India, China, serious, would have taken up the first 30 seconds of what the director said, because he would have gotten right into the cases. So this is not...
I'm just going to show you one more point from this. I do have your point about that. It's page 3. It's going to be your last question. Yes, thank you. Yes, it's the bullet point that begins with the word ultimately. Ultimately, state actors are able to conduct foreign interference successfully in Canada because there are no consequences, either legal or political. Foreign interference is therefore a low risk and high reward endeavor. Did the director convey in those words or in some similar words that message that this is a low risk, high reward endeavor because there are no consequences?
No.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Okay. So that line was specifically asked about later. So that's Justin Trudeau denying that CSIS Director David Vigneault briefed him on that specific line, that foreign interference is a low-risk, high-reward endeavor. He testified about that this morning. Let's go to it.
Sure, I've got it. have you ever communicated this particular assessment about us being slower than our Five Eyes allies to either the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's office?
Madam Commissioner, I can say with confidence that this is something that has been conveyed to the government, to ministers, the Prime Minister, using these words and other types of words. We often, in order to make sure we understand, have the best possible assessment of a situation, we often look to other jurisdictions to see what is their own analysis of the threat, what tools they have put in place. And so the comparative analysis of with the Five Eyes, but also with other like-minded nations who have similar political systems as ours, or Western democracies. Doing the comparative analysis is a very useful tool, both from an intelligence point of view, but also from a policy point of view. So I can say with a high degree of confidence that these examples I've used them in both private briefings, but also in my speeches, public speeches, in CSIS annual reports, in parliamentary testimony. Just this past week, I was in testifying in front of the Canada-China Committee in the House of Commons, and I used same kind of analysis on different topics linked to foreign interference. So yes, to question to the council, this has been conveyed.
Thank you. And I take it your answer would be the same for the passage at page 3 about there being no consequences, legal or political, for state actors who conduct foreign interference. Have I got that right?
Yes, Madam Commissioner. I elaborated on that point with previous questions, answers, sorry. But yes, it is accurate to say that, I have said, use these expressions. And indeed, this one very specifically, low risk, high reward endeavor.
Thank you.
So there's the CSIS director saying that he told the PMO directly, I specifically used those words. And there's Justin Trudeau saying, no, definitely didn't. He thinks he can just lie his way out of it. Justin Trudeau testified this week that he doesn't like to read high-level security briefings. Basically, he said, if someone wants me to know it, they're going to have to tell me. I don't know, and hope it just weasels its way into that block of Swiss cheese he calls a brain. Can you imagine? That's the guy running our country. Canada's in rough shape, but listening to him testify, I'm surprised it's not a hell of a lot worse. He's not a serious man. And the people around him are just a bunch of yes men who will, I guess, perjure themselves on the stand because they repeatedly said they didn't receive that high-level briefing from CSIS that the CSIS director says he gave him. In fact, we have him admitting, I think this is our last clip there, Olivia, and then we'll go into Trudeau just talking about taking the time to just cram his ideology down our throat and waste time at the commission. Trudeau and his senior prime minister's office staff, that includes Katie Telford and 3 other perjurers, I believe, claimed to the commission that the CSIS director did not inform them that China was, quote, deceptively and clandestinely interfering in Canada's elections. The CSIS director testified today that he did tell them. So let's show that clip.
And if you go, please, to page 2, about 1/3 down. There we are. Yes. Director, it's the bullet point. We know that the PRC clandestinely and deceptively interfered in both the 2019 and 2021 general elections. Is this knowledge something that you or the service as a body have communicated to the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's office?
Madam Commissioner, it is indeed something that has been communicated. I believe that I testified to that in where I said in our assessment, we saw foreign interference in both the 2019 and 2021 elections. However, I concur with the result of the panel, the conclusion of the panel, that this interference did not amount to having had the impact on the general election. So I think it's important to understand that both statements, in my opinion, are true at the same time. We saw foreign interference during those elections, and that interference was indeed clandestine and deceptive. And at the same time, that interference did not amount to have an impact on the integrity of the election.
And if I may just finally follow up on this one point, if you're able to say, Director, and I appreciate you may not be, are you able to say whether the interference referred to in this bullet is limited to Don Valley North in 2019 and Steveston or Richmond East in 2021, or whether it's broader?
I think, Madam Commissioner, the best way to answer the question is refer back to the summary that the government has published in public to the Commission as made public regarding the specific information on the 11 candidates and 13 staff members.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. That lawyer there is Gib Van Aert. He's the lawyer for Michael Chong, and he's been just an absolute joy to watch during this commission. I cut his cross-examination of Justin Trudeau in full. I put it, actually I did for a bunch of lawyers that I found quite interesting. The other one is Nando DeLuca. And his last name is Chowdhury. He was the lawyer for Jenny Kwan. I also put his testimony in full up on my Twitter page or X page, whatever they're calling it these days. It's at Sheila Gunn Reid if you want to watch it. He just did an incredible job. Polite, concise, to the point. Didn't waste any time because you don't have a lot of time to waste asking these guys questions. And he got right to the heart of it. Justin Trudeau said he didn't brief him. Did you brief him? And he said he did. So somebody's lying. And the one person who stands to gain something is Justin Trudeau in all of this. So what do you guys think? Who's lying? David Vigneault or Katie Telford and the gang and Justin Trudeau? Let me know in the comments section. We've got a couple more clips from the commission. Let's go to this next one. Trudeau claims that Canadians who didn't take a COVID-19 vaccine were fooled. They were fooled, I tell you, by misinformation and disinformation, claiming the vaccines were more dangerous than the virus itself.
I think we can see that disinformation and misinformation impacts several people. There are thousands of Canadians who believed that vaccination was more dangerous than COVID-19 itself. That is an example of people who were affected, sometimes fatally, by disinformation.
Fatally by disinformation. I have to be very careful because we remain on YouTube right now, but to say that the vaccines were even tested for efficacy could be considered misinformation at this point. To have suggested that there were no adverse effects headed towards young working age or fighting age men, as is the case with our military, if they took the Moderna vaccine. I think that's misinformation at this point. When they said that hybrid immunity was the best immunity, I think that might be considered misinformation at this point, depending on where you source your information. These guys were the biggest spreaders of misinformation about vaccination. It was coming from the government. Like, how many times has Justin Trudeau had COVID? Lots. How many times do you think he's been boosted? 4 or 5, maybe? Like, it's a lot. And every time you turn around and somebody says a mean word about him, he has to be held to account. He comes down with COVID and lays down on the fainting couch. So how effective is that? I ask you. And Justin Trudeau wants to claim that the vaccine hesitancy came from Russia instead of just people who are like, this seems rushed. I'm not sure if I want to stick this in my body quite yet. Or people who said, well, I already had COVID and I'm fine with the natural immunity and I survived it just fine. And so I'm not going to get that vaccine. That's not Russian disinformation. That's just people making a different medical choice, which used to be perfectly acceptable in this country. However, not anymore. I think we've got one more clip from Justin Trudeau's commission testimony. I'm just going to bring it up right now. It is Justin Trudeau admitting wholesale that his government, and we heard this, worked with social media companies. They had a voluntary agreement with the social media companies to censor misinformation, Canadians talking smack about the Liberals, be it true or otherwise, doesn't matter. But it was hurtful to Justin Trudeau, actually called some of it heinous, which is harsher than anything that he said about what was directed at Kenny Jew. But anyways, he said that he worked to ensure that these companies removed, I don't know, mean things about the Liberals, thus ensuring that Canadian elections remain free and fair for Canadians. He was really focused on taking down articles that were either fake news or just mean to him, more than he was, let's say, warning Michael Chong that he could be murdered out of the consulate in Toronto. But let's hear from Justin Trudeau.
Highlight that not every intervention by the P5 would be to convene a supper-hour press conference to tell Canadians about something in the middle of an election campaign. It could involve, as it has, apprising different parties of concerns. It could involve asking or working with a social media giant to take down a particular piece of misinformation. Like, there are different things that would have different thresholds in terms of what is required to do to ensure that the election remains free and fair for Canadians.
Olivia, I'm going to put you on the spot before we go to an ad break, and I know we're going long, but there's a clip. It's on my Twitter feed, X feed. Sorry, I shouldn't call it Twitter. That's the before times when it was a censorship platform, and now it's a free speech platform. So I must train my mouth. But if you go to my X, Justin Trudeau is asked about an article in the Buffalo Chronicle, which is an American-based, they trace the source of it. It's American-based, but there's no foreign money involved. So it's just Americans publishing what really does amount to be fake news about Justin Trudeau. I know a lot of you out there want to believe the Buffalo Chronicle article, but there's just no evidence that any of it is true at all. If it were there to find, trust us, we would find it. And actually, it would be probably published by the Times or Newsweek or something. Definitely not by anybody in Canada, except maybe us. But he was asked about this Buffalo Chronicle article. And I know many of you are also saying, like, if the Buffalo Chronicle wasn't true, why didn't Justin Trudeau sue? What's the point, right? Like, he got them to take it down. A bunch of conservatives now, because they believed it, because we all know he's a weirdo. We don't need to make up things about him being a weirdo. He can say, oh, look at those rubes. They'll believe anything. I need to protect them from misinformation. Thus, now I need to censor more of the internet. So the Buffalo Chronicle article actually didn't do anybody any favors because it resulted in increased censorship. And it alleged that Justin Trudeau had engaged with inappropriate behavior with a minor student at West Point Grey Academy, where he was a teacher at the time. Nothing has ever come out. Nobody's ever come forward. Nobody in their right mind would publish that. because it's so unsourced, it's unverified sources, there's nothing to prove. Like when I do access to information, I show you the document. I'm like, here's the document, read it for yourself. Don't believe me. Nobody's gone on the records. There's no, like, nothing. It's just a website, which is the only source, saying that there's an NDA. Now, you might take umbrage with me but really, what evidence do you have beyond that, except Justin Trudeau is a total weirdo? And he was already a total weirdo, by the way, at West Point Grey Academy. We don't need to fill in the blanks. We already know he did blackface there. He's got his black painted hand on some woman's chest. He left halfway through the year. Whatever. That's scandalous enough. We don't need to go with unverified sources. But anyway, that was one of the things that was taken down by Facebook. And I just want you to listen to the language used by Justin Trudeau to describe that fake news article about himself that was not foreign interference. It was just something somebody published in the United States he didn't like.
Okay, so the next topic then, Mr. Clerk, you can pull this up, CAN 003116, but Prime Minister, I think I can ask you this question without reference to a document. An incident that was reported by the RRM in the 29 election had to do with an article published in the Buffalo Chronicle, some misinformation, false information about you specifically. Is that something that came to your attention in the 2019 election?
No, it did not.
No, it did not. Okay.
Sorry, the engagement of the site task force or the panel or anyone into that issue was not something I was aware of at the time. I was, of course, aware of the quite disgusting false conspiracies or allegations being shared by both the Buffalo Chronicle and a significant number of conservative politicians.
Okay, so you were aware of the article, but not how, let's say, the apparatus was dealing with it.
I may have been aware of the article. I was certainly aware of the allegations and the accusations that were heinous and untrue in that.
Okay.
Okay, so couple of things there. I don't know any conservative politician that shared that article. Justin Trudeau just threw that in because he likes to lie on the stand. But he calls it heinous and untrue. Okay, could be. Could be. I really looked really hard to confirm that article. It is unverifiable at all. There's no byline, like there's nobody that you can ask, right? And we have looked into allegations about Justin Trudeau's past before. For example, we found the lady in that photo of him doing blackface. We found her. So there are things you can confirm about his time at West Point Grey Academy. That's just not one of them. And so anyway, all that is to say, Justin Trudeau, how does he describe it? Heinous and untrue. He reserves his biggest outrage for people saying mean things about himself. He didn't use that strong language when asked about what was happening to Kenny Chu, who said, "I'm drowning in misinformation and nobody did anything to help me." Justin Trudeau went on like a 7-minute, just running out the clock. I said in my tweet or my post that it felt like he was told to write 1,000-word book report on a book he didn't read at all. That's what it was like. But he never used that sort of strong language about any of the times that we know, to use the language of CSIS, that conservative politicians were targeted. It was just like, well, whatever. But somebody said something that was untrue about me or gross about me. That was heinous and untrue. Okay, big boy. All right, let's go to an ad break. I know some of you are going to be mad at me because I don't believe the West Point Grey scandal with the Buffalo Chronicle. But I betcha I did more digging around on it than some of my critics did. Okay, let's do an ad break.
The NDP Trudeau carbon tax on the farmer who grows the food and the trucker who ships the food is a tax on all who buy the food. Now they want to quadruple the tax. I'm Pierre Polyev. I'll axe the tax so you pay less and bring home more.
Folks, it's undeniable that our rights and freedoms are under attack. But how can we know what rights we're losing if we don't even know what rights we already have? It's Freedom Passport's mission to educate people about their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport is an easy-to-read, pocket-sized booklet containing the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's a portable token of your inalienable rights. There's an app, too. Easily access the Freedom Passport on your phone and compare rights and freedoms from around the world for only $3.99. Join our global community of individuals who are passionate about understanding their rights and freedoms. Visit freedompassport.ca and get your Freedom Passport today.
There's so much more energy in Canada to fight back against woke, to fight back against tyranny.
The counter reaction eventually to relentless identity politics is for the other side to start saying, okay, identity politics. Right or wrong, what it does is it creates more of itself. It's like it's contagious.
These tyrannical regimes weaponize the idea that people think they're the only one who doesn't get along with doesn't go along with everything, right? And so they're ashamed that they're not good enough to get it. If they don't buy in, they're going to get excluded. They know that the axe comes for them, and so they're going to do anything to stay included. That's the psychology of inclusion. That's the word, right? People are waking up and saying, "Oh my gosh, what's really going on?" And a lot of them are getting answers, and a lot of them are figuring it out. They cross the uncrossable line. They mess with our kids. We've heard from Sikhs, we've heard from Muslims, we've heard from Christians, we've heard from atheists, we've heard from all kinds of people. You don't mess with our kids.
Hello, Rebels. Now, I think you'll agree with me that my friend David Menzies is one of the best man-on-the-street journalists in this entire country. Why? Because he's fearless, he tackles issues Canadians really care about, he's unafraid, and he's also a happy warrior. But David's good nature hasn't prevented police and politicians from brutally stopping him from doing his important work on behalf of Canadians. David's been arrested repeatedly for the crime of doing journalism in Trudeau's Canada. I'll have you know that I'm one of David Menzies' biggest fans, and that's why I'm so proud to tell you about this amazing new Stand With David Menzies shirt we have in the Rebel News store at rebelnewsstore.com. It shows David the way we know and love him, at his fun and fearless best. I ordered a shirt to support my friend David as he fights for the fundamental right of the free press in our post-constitutional society. And I'd love it if you ordered one too, because I think it would be really great for my friend David to meet one of you out in the wild and see you wearing a shirt with his handsome mug all over it. Fighting for the ability to tell the truth is a dangerous thing, and sometimes it can get you down. So let's lift my friend David up and show him thanks and gratitude for the sacrifices he and his family have made to bring us the other side of the story. Go to rebelnewsstore.com right now and get this beautiful Stand With David Menzies shirt. So besides this shirt being exceptionally good looking, a portion of the sales goes to support my friend David in his many legal battles, because he's not just in legal trouble for trying to do journalism, he's also suing the people who have prevented him from doing his job. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. You know, that ad is going to go to David Menzies' head. Oh, am I frozen again, Olivia? Okay, I'm good. Okay, so we have a quick update actually to bring you about the protest situation in Toronto, where we have these mobs of pro-Hamas terror apologists running amok, terrorizing the Jewish community, protesting on the lawns of synagogues, and they want me to believe that it's just about Israel. Okay. And David Menzies, of course, as you know, has been arrested unlawfully by police for covering these events. And we have a quick update, actually, from the Toronto police saying that, you know, basically cut us some slack. There are unique challenges to policing these things. Really, is there? You know what? Just pretend they're anti-lockdown protests and start arresting everybody. But anyway, let's listen to what they have to say.
Toronto Police attend these gatherings to maintain public order, facilitate crowd control, and above all, to ensure the safety of everyone present, be they demonstrators, officers, or the general public. Policing such events in a free and democratic society presents unique challenges. We respect the right to assembly and to expression, but it's crucial to understand that these rights are not limitless. These are laws and regulations that must be adhered to, and it's the responsibility of Toronto Police to enforce them. Our officers are well versed in their authorities during demonstrations, and when they take action, it is unacceptable to obstruct them or become aggressive towards them. Well, I'm here to tell you that, that we are here, in fact, in policing in an unbiased way to protect everybody's rights. And all we can ask is for people to be respectful of one another within the group that is gathering, and also to our police officers, and again, to the people in the community who are trying to go about their business.
She's still trying to say that David Menzies obstructed anybody from doing their job. He absolutely didn't. He was taken away because he was reporting on the fact that there was a pro-Hamas protest. They were blocking the street. They were set to, I guess, pray in the street, whatever. And David Menzies is the one taken away. And then the other day, David Menzies is shoved. Look at this. He's shoved. They've got their hands all over him. Look how close the police are to this. I love police, but there's really something wrong with the Toronto Police Service. David is being manhandled and cornered, and so is our cameraman, who I think at the time was Efron, and he's being shoved, hit. Look at the police, how close they are. They come right in. Mr. Menzies, it's time for you to go to jail. So the guys who are shoving him, hitting him, they're fine. David gets shoved up against the wall. They're swiping at Efron, swiping and making contact with David. Guess who goes to jail again? David Menzies. And then they want me to believe that they're doing this in an unbiased way. This is 360 camera of what happened to David. I haven't seen this footage yet. I don't think we've even published this. But look at, they clothesline him. I've never seen that footage before, but it makes it look even worse for the Toronto police, doesn't it? See how many of them were just standing there? They're so close to what happened. They watched the whole thing. They watched David and Efron get shoved around. And then they come in and take David away. The victim of what appears to be an assault, he gets taken off to jail and held for hours, by the way. I had to do the terrible task of informing his wife that he was in jail again. He gets taken away and he gets charged. They tell him, you're trespassing in the public square. That's Nathan Phillips Square. That's the town square, really, in Toronto. And David gets taken away. That 360 camera footage makes that look even worse. What a mess. David got clotheslined by a flag, blocked from reporting in the town square, assaulted, and then look at this, he gets arrested, taken off to the paddy wagon. They're going to start calling it the Menzies wagon. It's crazy. It's grotesque. You know, I hate biased policing so much because there are so many good cops out there who work really hard to do a good job and they care about the same things we do. They don't want to be kicking in your door because of COVID and it's Christmas. They don't want to be kicking in your door to take your guns because they'd rather be arresting the bad guys. They don't. And this stuff hangs like a millstone around their necks. They hate it just as much as we do because they're trying to do a good job. And these guys, these yahoos, you want to talk about Yahoo Nation? It's the Toronto Police Service. You know, that's all we know about policing. And it's an absolute shame. I can't stand it. Let's go into changing lanes. We'll go into the Toronto Police again, I believe. Is that Toronto? Oh no, Ottawa. Also bad cops. Not all of them. Don't write me letters. Cops in my family. But they were not great during the Freedom Convoy, and they remain not great. And it has a lot to do with their bosses. Like my friend Gavin McInnes always says, F the police's bosses. Like cops. We don't like their bosses. Let's go into carbon tax. So, as you know, we're all getting our pockets picked by Justin Trudeau on April 1st. The carbon tax, which is an inflationary tax on everything that is added every step along the supply chain, was increased from the arbitrary and already expensive $65 a ton, metric ton, to $80. And people are still protesting out there. They're still out on the side of Highway 1 west of Calgary protesting, I think. Let me know in the comment section. Are they still protesting in Lloydminster? I'm going to go check it out. I heard a little rumor that they're still protesting there. So the Conservatives have passed a motion for Justin Trudeau demanding that Trudeau meet with the premiers. And as we remarked on last week, he says, what's the big deal, you guys? I met with the premiers back in 2016. Well, that's great, but we're on our third premier since then. A lot has changed in the country, including a housing crisis, inflationary crisis, cost of living crisis, COVID. A lot of things have changed in this country. Perhaps you should consider meeting with them, especially since it's not just Conservative premiers that are opposing the carbon tax now, but almost all of them, including an NDP premier in Manitoba, Wab Kinew, and a Liberal premier in the Maritimes. So they've passed this motion opposing the carbon tax and demanding that Trudeau meets with the premiers. They did this, by the way, the Conservative Party, with the support of the Bloc and the NDP, who are just the socialist caucus of the Liberal Party of Canada, I believe, at this point. So Trudeau's asked, by the way, I saw a post go past my X feed. Look at, I'm learning about, and it was from Justin Trudeau. Someone dug it up and tweeted it back out about, you know, like, I think he was excoriating Stephen Harper about failing to meet with the premiers incessantly on something. And he was a big critic of prime ministers who don't, I don't know, consult with the provinces on every little nitty gritty thing. But on this big thing, he's like, I talked to you guys in 2016. Why don't you shut up? Anyway, we've got a video from Trudeau, and he's asked about refusing to meet with the premiers over the carbon tax. So let's watch him lie to us some more.
This is about the carbon tax. 6 premiers have asked for a First Minister's meeting with you. You have so far not committed to anything. What does that say to the discussions with premiers and federalism?
Continued to have robust discussions with all premiers over the past months. And I will remind people that we had a First Minister's conference on the environment and on climate change within the first months of us taking office, where we set out the framework for the pan-Canadian fight against climate change. That's exactly what we did, and we created both a backstop mechanism that puts a price on pollution and puts more money in people's pockets, and the opportunity for provinces that wanted to create their own system to ensure pollution wasn't free to do exactly that. So any premier that doesn't want to be subject to the price on pollution can do like Quebec or like BC have done and bring in their own way of making sure that pollution isn't free. Now, the premiers continue to talk about stepping back in our fight against climate change and stepping back in the affordability measures that are putting hundreds of dollars every few months in the pockets of Canadian families. Canadian families, middle class and lower income families, get more money with the Canada carbon rebate. Economists are clear on this, than they do without it. And it is a powerful tool representing about a third of our fight against climate change and our ability to reduce emissions. If the premiers want to propose, individually or collectively, another way of fighting climate change and supporting affordability for Canadians, I'm all ears. But right now, all we see is premiers misinforming Canadians and wanting to take away the Canada carbon rebate checks that are making a huge difference in people's lives.
Is the Canada carbon rebate check making a huge difference in your life? Or is the carbon tax making a huge difference in your life? This guy, he accuses the premiers of spreading misinformation. He's the guy telling you that if you pay more for everything, the weather will get more gooder. Sure, buddy. Sure. That's real serious sciencing you're doing right there. Trudeau, I believe just moments ago, this clip was cut by our beloved Efron. He is asked about the NDP now expressing reservations on the carbon tax. Before, this was just a bunch of stupid conservatives not understanding science. But the NDP are turning on him, and I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I mean, they'll stomp their feet and blah, 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 but they'll always side with Trudeau because he's their vehicle to power. But, oh God, that face. Look at that guy. He's about to explain science and math to us. You feel smarter already? Let's listen to this.
The NDP is expressing reservations about the carbon tax. What does it signal that you have lost many premiers, and now you may be losing the NDP's support for your plan as well?
I feel for the NDP and for Jagmeet. This is a hard moment. There are political headwinds. There's a lot of political pressure. I'm certainly feeling it. Everyone should be feeling it. By folks out there who are worried about affordability, who are worried about climate change. And I don't know. My perspective is this is a time to actually do more to fight climate change, not less. To do more to put money in people's pockets. And it's not a handful of conservative politicians and premiers that are going to turn me away from continuing the fight against climate change, the fight for a better future, and the fight to put more money in people's pockets. So I don't entirely understand the position of the NDP in pulling back both from affordability measures and from the fight against climate change. But I can assure everyone that this government, my government, will continue to step up on the fight against climate change, will continue to put more money in families' pockets.
Got more money in your pocket? I sure as hell don't. He just keeps thinking if he continues to say it, it will be true. The only people with more money in their pockets these days are the MPs who gave themselves a raise while we all got dinged with a higher carbon tax. They gave themselves, on average, an $8,500 a year raise. And we also know that they moved the election date by a week. Why? Because if they held the election when it was scheduled to be held on October 20th, 2025, a whole bunch of them wouldn't qualify for their MP pensions because they all qualify for their MP pensions on October 21st, 2025. So they moved the election by a week just to stick it to us. And they know, many of those Liberal MPs know that they are going to lose their seats deservedly. So they have to take us for everything on the way out the door. Let's go to, still on the issue of the feds being absolute climate ideologues, science be damned, and affordability, just burn it down. We have our reporter Alexa Lavoie in Ottawa putting a question to my Premier, Danielle Smith, and I think we should do the one about Steven Guilbeault, Olivia, because it's in the description for this live stream. So let's do that one if you don't mind.
Do you ever believe that Steven Guilbeault will work in partnership with you?
No.
Or do you think he should resign?
I think I've been asking for some time. I tried, I tried in good faith to work with Steven Guilbeault, but he's an ideologue and he is not changing direction. He doesn't take, what he does is he talks to the provinces as a box checking exercise to say he consulted, and he has no interest in working in the spirit of collaborative federalism, despite losing twice with the Impact Assessment Act, which admonished the federal government to stay in their own lane, and with the federal plastics being declared toxic, which they said was not only an overreach, but also a violation of the Constitution. So he keeps losing in court. He is not a good faith partner at the cabinet table. When he goes to international conferences, he gives surprise announcements that he doesn't talk to us about that impacts our area of jurisdiction. So I've said if the Prime Minister wants to restart his relationship with the premiers and with us in particular, we need a new partner. We need a new Environment Minister.
She's such a straight shooter. You know how Justin Trudeau reacts to smart, powerful women. He kicks them out of his caucus. He fires him. He can't fire her. She's going to be a real thorn in his side until he is beautifully unelected on October, I think it's 27th, 29th, doesn't matter, 2025. She's going to be the worst thing that ever happened to Justin Trudeau, not just because she's fighting for Alberta, but because she is emboldening the other provinces to do the same. You don't think that the fact that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and several other provinces have come out against the carbon tax, you don't think that had something to do with Wab Kinew of the NDP in Manitoba saying, you know what, yeah, me too? I hope Steven Guilbeault gets fired. But Justin Trudeau will just hang on to him for spite. Just everybody go down together on the Titanic. And I'd love to see it. I bet you do too. We've got a couple clips because that question Alexa asked to my Premier, Danielle Smith, happened at the Strong and Free Networking Conference in Ottawa. It's the new iteration of the Manning Center Conference. They're calling it something else now. But it's like a conservative symposium where all the movers and shakers and big thinkers and politicians and activist groups and independent media, they all sort of come together, and it's fun, but it's got a lot of official conservative types there. You know what I mean? Not that I'm against that. There's a place for those people here, but sometimes it can be a little tame. But Alexa's covering it anyway, and she's asking some tough questions to the people that are there. And not questions that CBC would ask, right? Like questions that actual conservatives want to know from the Conservatives vying to be thought leaders or leaders of a government or MPs or whatever. And she's got a video of former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett arriving to speak at this conservative conference, and demonstrators have somehow weaseled their way in, and they're chanting for genocide or accusing him of genocide. We'll see how it goes. From the river to the sea, again, that's a plainly genocidal chant. From the river to the sea, people, they don't know what that means, but it means from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean. It will be free of what? Jews. It's a genocidal chant. And they're out on the street in front of the Strong and Free Networking Conference. At least they're not inside. And you'll note they're sort of taking a hands-off approach to these guys. They're keeping them outside. I mean, it's not illegal to protest Naftali Bennett. So they're out on the street. The conference hasn't removed them, which is fair enough. That's how it should be. Even people who are wrong are allowed to be on the street chanting how wrong they are. But we've got another video. Ottawa police take a soft approach to dealing with a pro-Hamas crowd trying to disrupt the Canada Strong and Free networking event. Let's watch. I think that's enough. I have a headache. I have a little bit of a headache, but that's from listening to Justin Trudeau lie all day Wednesday. But look how the police are dealing with this. Pretend these were freedom convoyers. Have their bank accounts frozen, they'd still be in jail. I do not disagree with how this protest is being policed. Don't get me wrong. I think that's exactly the right approach to a peaceful protest. We're going to stand here. We're going to make sure that you don't barge in to the private event right there, which is how it should be. People have paid to go to that conference, a lot of money, and they don't need your nonsense. It's a private event. And the organizers have rented the venue to keep people out of it. So I don't disagree with how the police are policing there. They're not aggressive. They're not anything. They're just making sure that you stay over there and not where you're not supposed to be. Perfect. My problem is that when we have the likes of the Toronto Police Service and repeatedly we've heard in the past the Ottawa Police Service that they don't take a political approach to policing, I would suggest they do, because we saw the absolute consistent overreaction to the peaceful anti-COVID demonstrations, as is the case with Ottawa, the Freedom Convoy. Why couldn't they be like this to the Freedom Convoy? Why couldn't they be like this in Toronto to the anti-COVID marches that were completely peaceful, and instead the police are just like arresting ladies holding flags? It's very sad. It's very sad. And what bothers me the most is that it breaks our trust with our police services, and we should be able to trust them. Like, I'm a constant skeptic of authority, which is good. But these last years, I think it has damaged the Canadians' perception of our police service. And I think also it's deeply damaged the morale of our police officers, where a lot of them just want to retire because they don't want to be involved in this nonsense, and they don't want to be associated with the bad cops. It's just, I don't know. going to take a long time to fix all this if it's even fixable. We've got a couple of chats, I believe, and I think we wrap up the show because we've gone over time and I have other things I need to do. We've got one from Ryerson Gary. Says, oh, it gives us $5. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Justin tolerates protests. That's right. To qualify, 3 tenets apply. No bouncy castles. Must have a kill the Jews chant or sexualizing young children chant, possibly. And protesters and or police must assault David Menzies. You know, I wish this were a joke, but it seems to be true. Like, I, now, as someone who approves David's missions in the world, I'm anxious whenever he's got a fun idea or he wants to go out in the world. I'm thinking, okay, well, I have Lady Menzies on speed dial, I guess. And make sure you have a camera person with you because we need an extra angle of your arrest because we're going to have to sue somebody every time David Menzies dons his cap and grabs his microphone and heads out into the world. And it should not be that way. And if David Menzies were a man of the left, or if he worked for one of the bailout media, Amnesty International would be weighing in, right? The Democratic Institutions Minister would be weighing in his defense. I mean, at this point, I don't even look to see if the journalistic organizations are weighing in, like the Canadian Association of Journalists or PEN Canada or whatever. I maintain memberships in some of those organizations just so I can righteously complain about how bad they are. Because I can say, you took my $70 and I'm not sure what you do around here, people, because my colleagues keep getting arrested. So anyways, that's why I maintain membership in those organizations, but I don't even check anymore to see if they've issued a statement. It's always conservative politicians and the independent press gallery, normally. That's it. We're on our own. And that's not true. I'm lying. We're not on our own because we have you. We have something everybody else doesn't. And it's the best thing. We don't have Justin Trudeau's support. We don't have the support of the journalistic class. We don't have government financial support. We don't even have access to Parliament Hill. We have you, and that's way better than all those other things. We have our independence and the support of the real people. So all those other organizations can suck it. Let's go. We've got another one from a frequent chatter to us on the show. It's from Snowy Roof. Gives us $5 and says, are you guys looking into the ouster of the mayor and council members of Chestermere? Yeah, we have. I know that my friend Adam has been looking into that in the background. It's very, very complicated. There's a lot of agendas floating around. But I think we can all agree that whatever the outcome was, that thing was dysfunctional as heck. And I don't know what should have been done around there. Frankly, I know less about it than my friend Adam does, but what a mess. What a mess. And stuck in the middle of all of it are the good folks in Chestermere. But it touches on an issue that is always relevant and especially relevant this week. Municipalities exist at the pleasure of the province. They are creatures of the province. All the powers that municipalities have to rezone, to tax you, to do all those things, they are granted to them by the province. And the province can dissolve it just like that. And the reason this is relevant is the federal government has decided to go around the province here in Alberta and attach their green agenda to affordable housing grants, billions of dollars in affordable housing grants. And they've made deals directly with the cities. And the province has said, and they are enacting a law now to make sure this never happens again, you cannot go around us. We have a housing minister. We have a communities minister. You don't get to make deals directly with the cities. And the cities in Alberta are progressively run. And Edmonton is actually run by a former Trudeau cabinet minister. So as Jason Nixon, our communities minister, said, the days of the federal government going around us to strike deals with their friends who are big city mayors are over. And I can be happier about it because you know what? Poor people, they don't need to live in a sea can with a solar panel on the top, insulated with straw bales because of the carbon footprint. They need places to live and not some sort of cubicle with a green agenda attached. Okay, I think that's, we got one more. Shauna Marie, G83, says, gives us $10, by the way. Thank you very much, Shauna. Just wanted to say hello since it's been so long, Sheila. Thank you for being a beacon of hope and truth in this crazy world. Well, I'm just lucky because, again, we have all of you at home who support the work that we do. And I work for a company that lets me speak my mind and lets me advocate for causes that I care deeply about, because I'm just a normal person. And I think if I care about this stuff, I think the majority of like the normals of the world also care about them too. So I am given the opportunity and the trust of my employer to pursue my passion projects. And that is free speech, religious freedom, and the right to life, I think mostly, and property rights. So I feel lucky, that's all. And I know a lot of you have regular jobs where you have rules to follow with regard to what you can and can't do. I have some of that, but not in the other ways. You know what I mean? Well, everybody, I think that's the show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everybody, Olivia, Efron, everybody who works behind the scenes to put the show together so that it's there for me, but also you, whenever you want to watch it. Thank you to those of you who pitched in to keep the lights on. Every little bit helps, and it helps protect our fierce independence from the behemoth of government. And as my friend David Menzies always used to say when he hosted the show, stay sane.
The purpose of everything I do is simply to create awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history, which is the business of telling children that they were born wrong, that they need to be something they're not, and then giving them puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, and even surgeries in a fruitless effort to change their sex, based on the lie that they'll never find true happiness unless they try to modify their body. I travel all across the world raising awareness about what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in modern medicine history. The insane practice of trying to change the sex of our